that really, really well, because that impacted families personally, even more so than, like I say, Watergate made us aware of something and made us stand up and take notice. But the gas thing was crucial. Now, for me, I wasn't really going out. I wasn't in my career then. I was still home with my kids. So it wasn't critical that I have gas and stuff. And Ed, my husband, was in the fire service, so he had access to gas because he had to be there. The city had gas, what would they call them, tanks and stuff. I mean, the guys paid for everything, but they made sure that there were places where the guys could get their gas so that they could get to the station because they had to be there. So it didn't affect us as much as it did some people. But I can remember watching lines that caused fights and it put people in real stress.
Wow. And it was just over gas?
Yeah, because I think you don't realize when you can just pull up to a gas station every day whenever you have money and want to and get gas. Until you can drive for miles and miles and you're on empty and there's no gas stations that have any gas left. And oftentimes cars were abandoned along the road, some of them. There was one on Mercer Island that caused a terrible accident and caused a man to lose his foot because a pickup truck was abandoned just off the road, and he didn't get off the road far enough, and a motorcycle came around a curve and hit the back of the truck and lost his leg. Well, that was because the man ran out of gas and he couldn't get gas, the guy driving the truck.
Wow.
So there were real consequences of that.
That's amazing.
It was.
And do you remember the rationing system? I heard there was some sort of certain days of the month was when you were allowed to go out and get gas.
I was never aware of that.
That might have just been in parts more, I don't know. I think that was the Midwest.
It could have been, I don't know. Not anything that me and my family was ever, were ever heard of or took care of.
And were there lines for the gas stations?
Oh my goodness, yes. There were lines. Like I say, people would wait in line up to 2 hours because sometimes there would be signs on a gas station, the pumps that said, delivery expected at 1 o'clock or whatever.
Oh.
And so people would just line up, and that's where sometimes people would get in arguments and fights because they'd say someone else cut in, or it was awful. Fortunately, we weren't a part of it because of what we were doing in our lives at that time. But some people were.
That'd be crazy. And are you familiar with the reason that the energy crisis started? The OPEC thing in the Middle East?
No, I didn't pay that much attention to politics at the time. I knew it had to do with our policies, and that they, I knew they were withholding, but I didn't know why they were withholding. But it had to do with trade agreements and that kind of thing.
All right. So what area do you think was hit hardest from what you heard?
Oh, I think the metropolitan areas.
Like cities?
That's what I would think, yeah. The one, those that employed large amounts of people. People like, places like Boeing where they had, but people were real, it did bring people together in one way because they had to start carpooling and they had to start finding other means of doing what they had to do.
Oh, that's funny.
Instead of like just figuring you're just going to run out and get milk and tomorrow you're going to run out and get bread and this kind of stuff. You really thought about, your trips, where you were going, what you could accomplish with that one trip. Because you might not, you had to make your gas last. You know, you can, I liken it to if you were, caught in a snowstorm up on the mountain and you had one bottle of water or one package of crackers and you didn't know when you were going to be rescued, so you'd try to make those last.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the way it was with your gas. Two reasons. One reason it became very expensive, and the other reason was because you didn't know when you'd be able to fill that tank again.
Wow.
So in that way it was a good thing. People's eyes were open to, it's kind of like, I compare it a little bit to what's happening now with our encouraging people to take their own grocery bags to the store instead of just constantly using more and more plastic.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible to just keep using more and more plastic, but if you stop and think about it, it's not a good thing. So I think after the gas issue, people did become more aware of what they were. All those things bring an awareness. I think any of that stuff brings an awareness.
All right.